It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in. It is another episode of Experience the Buzz, episode number 141. Nick Pecoraro is with us. He is the host of Premier Preps. It is a high school sports show here in Northern California, primarily Sacramento and the outlying areas, that is on YouTube every Sunday at 5 o'clock. The reason I bring Nick on is because he's going to share his story today and what he's doing, which I think is an incredible adventure. I have a passion for high school sports because when I broke into broadcasting in the early 90s, I actually had a high school show, and we actually did a Friday night show way back in the day before this thing became popular in the local area. So I'm very excited to find out what Nick has to offer, which I know is going to be good stuff. But he's really going to kind of pull back the curtain, as we like to say, on what he is doing and what's behind it and getting sponsors and everything. And also, taking a peek at the high school sports world as it looks in 2024, notably girls flag football, which is a big thing now. So much excitement, and I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. In addition, I want to say thank you. And it's so very important to me because this is an adventure that I decided to go on back in January of 2021. My first episode was just talking about my entrepreneur journey. And I love being an entrepreneur. My first guest was Tim Collum of House Real Estate, also a well-known artist. That started a flurry of hundreds now of conversations that I have been able to have with people like Nick today and Tim when it all started, to just say, what is your story? Because I believe everybody has a story. I also believe that everybody, no matter if you have a 9-to-5 or you've created your own business, is an entrepreneur. So I really hope you enjoy this one. Thank you for being a part of the community. If you are just jumping by, just coming by, listen, I invite you to stick around, see for yourself, listen for yourself, to see if you enjoy what we got here at Experience the Buzz. And it would really help if you would subscribe. It always helps. We like getting the subscribers, and all that does is alert you to brand new material that we have here on Experience the Buzz. We try to get it out on a bi-weekly basis, and we usually premiere our videos on Monday mornings. So there you have it. Now let's join in with Nick Pecoraro, my guest for episode number 141. Enjoy the conversation. All right, everybody, welcome in. It is Experience the Buzz. We are talking high school sports preps. It is a show that is on YouTube every Sunday at 5 o'clock. First full season has just launched. It happened in August 25th. And this is the host, Nick Pecoraro. And Nick, welcome to the program. It's good to have you.
Steve, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me about what you are doing. Kind of introduce yourself to the world, because as we dive into this conversation, I think at the end of it, people are going to be like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And because it does, I want to jump on board.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So my name's Nick, and I've covered high school sports throughout the Sac Joaquin section since probably 2010. And I've worked for various news outlets, Folsom Telegraph, the Auburn Journal, Roseville Press Tribune, all of those up in Placer County under the Gold Country Media umbrella. I've worked for the Sac High Sports Show, which was an extension of the Cal High Sports Show down in the Bay Area. They came up here for a couple of years, and that got me into the videography portion of our industry. And I currently freelance for the Sacramento Bee. I help out with West Coast Preps every now and then. And I've recently, as you mentioned, Steve, tried to create a new venture of my own called Premier Preps with Nick Pecoraro. And it's basically focused on highlighting all of the positive achievements on and off the fields of the local high school sports scene. And as you mentioned, I'm in my first full season, just had my first full episode on August 25th. We're about 4 weeks deep now, or this is week four, excuse me. And I started it last October. And so I didn't get a full football season. Now I'm getting this full football audience. And so hopefully this is just the beginning of some big things to come.
Yeah, and let's talk about Premier Preps in kind of detail, because this came about over the fact that you were doing Cal High Sports. That was a very successful show, and you mentioned the Sacramento kind of leg of it happened as well. But last July, they decided not to pick up the season, which would have been season number 3. And so you drummed up this idea. And I think the most important thing out of this is for people to realize that you've been in the game. You've been in the game for a while, since 2010. So it's not like you're just diving in with the show Premier Preps and you're just kind of getting used to what's going on. You have a feel for it. So when you're showing up and you're doing video and you're doing interviews, people do know who you are. And so I have to imagine that based on the experience that you've had, that there has been excitement drummed up about this. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so I hope that my little bit of experience kind of plays a role in that. That's kind of really the only reason why I attached my name to the title, Premier Preps with Nick Pecoraro. I wasn't, in love with that just because it's not about me; it's about the people that I'm covering. But whatever name recognition I did have in this industry, then I wanted to try to use that as a launching pad. Yeah, I mean, I like I said before, I got into the videography and the TV portion of this business through the Sac High Sports Show. It was very unfortunate that we didn't get to have a third season. I don't know the exact reason for it. I think a lot of it had to do with sponsorships not being available at the time where we needed them to be. And so it was devastating to us as a show. We were all out of jobs at that point, or most of us were. And, but I just felt more bad for the kids who didn't get to have that type of coverage anymore. They loved, from everything that I heard, they loved seeing themselves on TV. Their parents loved watching it. Their grandparents loved it. Their coaches, their entire schools and communities, they loved seeing themselves every Sunday night. And so the response that I got to the news when I said, hey, unfortunately, Sac High's not coming back this next year, the response I got was overwhelming on social media. And, people were reaching out to me, sending me text messages. They were calling me saying, hey, what can we do to try to help make this thing work? And it just hit me. It made me realize that, this is something that people want here. It's something that you can't get, a full show dedicated solely to high school sports in this Sacramento area. I mean, you have news anchors like Del Rogers, Kevin John, Matt George, all these guys in the area who do a fantastic job on the local news stations, but they also have the Sacramento Kings that they have to prioritize. They have the Finners, the A's, the Giants. They do a great job with the high school sports scene, but there's nothing here that is solely dedicated to just high school sports. And that's where I want to try to come in and help kind of create these memories for these kids and keep that ball rolling.
Love it. And for the multitaskers out there, if you're watching this on YouTube or maybe even on the audio version and you're like, wait, I want to check this out. Well, just go to YouTube right now. You can look up Premier Preps. He's right there, and it's got all the episodes. And just look at the episode yourself. That's what I did in preparation for this. And the quality is incredible. And the work that has to go into it, I don't think people understand. When you think of high school sports, like, it is so massive, right? And when you talked about the football season that you didn't get to do last year, this being your first full season, I don't think people understand what goes into not only getting the material for the show, but then putting the show together. And so can you talk about that process of what, maybe like a week looks like for you as you prepare to get ready for the show? You've obviously got to earmark some things that are going to be part of your show on a weekly basis.
For sure. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of preparation, many levels. When I was putting the show together and I had just kind of the concept phase of it, I was preparing graphics. I had to have a vision of what I wanted my show to look like, whether from segment to segment. What did I want the show open to look like? What did I want the show closed to look like? What do I want to show during the highlights? Do I want to have a little bottom ticker going along with the scores from the week coming through? All these little things. And so those are all part of my preparation throughout the week. Sunday nights, I'll probably finalize which games I want to go to throughout the week. I always try to choose at least one football game every Friday night. I want to choose one flag football game, and I want to choose one girls volleyball game every week to go to, and maybe I'll have room for a fourth game depending on what my workload looks like. But I'll usually have my games finalized. I'll have each of my game folders prepped with scoreboards and team graphics and logos and everything like that, setting all that up during the early part of the week. And then, putting out social media previews. I'm huge on social media and trying to promote that, hey, Premier Preps is going to be out there. Be sure to watch and subscribe to my show. Just trying to get the word out. And then that's the early part of the week. And then the middle part is just, going out to the games, getting some highlight footage, doing some social media stuff on games. So I'll film the whole game and I'll mark all of the key plays that I think should make the highlights. I'll interview who I think had a player of the game type of game at the end of the game. And I'll come home and I'll put all the highlights together. That usually takes me probably a couple hours to knock everything out, to upload, to cut, to write my script and track and everything like that. And so I'm usually up until at least midnight, maybe 1 o'clock on most nights. On Friday nights, it's sometimes 2 or 3, depending, because Friday nights I also, like I said, help out with the Sacramento Bee. So I'm writing a game story on top of all that as well, on deadline. So it's like I gotta really try to prioritize everything. But it's definitely a full week. And when it comes down to exporting each segment and exporting the shows and finally putting everything together and putting it on YouTube, I feel like it's time to start the next week over again. So it's like it's barely time to kind of catch a breath, it feels like at times, but it's well worth it.
And it's safe to say you're a one-man show, correct? You don't have a production team. This is you. This is your baby.
I am a one-man show. Like I said, I go out and film. I schedule everything. I do the interviews. I produce. I cut, promote, social media, everything.
So let's do this. Like we're going to fully get into this, and we're going to put this in the show notes, and we're probably going to, say this over and over again. But give us those ways that people can find you, like the social media aspect of it, obviously the YouTube channel.
Yeah, so the best way to find me is if you're on YouTube, just search at Premier Preps, or you can type in Premier Preps with Nick Pecoraro. My last name is spelled Pecoraro. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm really big on Twitter and Instagram especially, and those are at Premier Preps NP.
NP, which M must be your middle name, correct?
That's right, Nicholas Michael Pecoraro.
There we go. Now we know. So, folks, this is why I get so excited, because what Nick represents is the grind. He is grinding, but it's safe to say as well, you love what you do. There's a reason why you're doing this, and that you had the passion that even though those things didn't work out with Cal High sports, didn't get the season renewed, that you found a way to kind of keep this fire going, right? You love it, yes?
100%. I mean, what they always say, when you love what you do, you feel like you don't work a day in your life, right? Like it couldn't be truer than that right now. I mean, I really love going out to games. That's just part of it too. I mean, I also have interviews, special guest interviews, kind of like what we're doing here on the Buzz. And I try to give some more people some shine that way, and kind of let people know who these kids are and who these coaches are within the community, and letting them share their stories. I'll put together a feature story package with people who have inspirational backgrounds or have overcome something crazy to still be excelling to do great things on the field and on the courts. And those are the ones who I really like sharing their stories, because it's like I always use my in-laws as an example. They're kind of like your casual sports fans where, they don't follow anything, and, they probably don't really watch my show too much, but they do like when I tell those kind of inspirational stories, right? Because it's like, it's something that they can relate to. It's the human aspect of it. And I feel like if I can get my in-laws to watch something that I do, then I've done a really good job.
That's like kind of that's your litmus test right there, right? The in-laws watch, you're doing something good. Oh man, that's great. And so, and I don't want to bury this next part because I think this is the part that I think people need to understand is that because you're doing this and you're a one-man band and it's all you, the money aspect of it is tough. And I think this has been the problem with high school sports for as long as I can remember, and that is being able to get sponsors to come on board and to support this. And in my mind, it seems like a no-brainer, right? You're talking about families. You have an opportunity to really put yourself out there as a business to say, yeah, I support high school sports. And by the way, here's my business. Can you talk about the challenges of that? Because with Cal High Sports, the sponsorship didn't happen. Boom, you don't have a show. You're kind of in the same space. Now, the nice thing is you did get a sponsor, but I know that's something you're constantly working on. And I do want to address it because I think if people know the importance of it, that there might be more people that step up and say, yeah, this is something I would like to support.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you would think that supporting your community and the local kids growing up in it, you would think it's a no-brainer, right? Well, I mean, obviously, it's not that simple. If a show with the great reputation that Cal High Sports has and extending up to Sacramento, and again, I don't know if that was 100% the reason why, but I know it had a big part to do with it. And if that was if they had struggles trying to secure sponsorships themselves with that type of reputation, then like, okay, I really got my work cut out for me, right? So it's been one of my missions over the summer when there's been no high school sports to try and secure some sponsorships, just some local things to, get this thing off the ground. And, I was very fortunate and lucky to have Infinite Performance Physical Therapy jump on board right before the season started, which I love. Janae Young, she's doing some great things out there in her little office in Rancho Cordova. We actually got connected because I did a feature story on a Christian Brothers basketball player who she happened to be rehabbing through her comeback. And so that's kind of how I made that connection with her. And that one, like you said, was a no-brainer right there. Like we work in the same community. And those are the types of things that I'm really looking for. It's just like who is invested in this high school sports community or even just the local high school community. It doesn't have to be sports, just has to be working with youth sports or if you just believe in the importance of what high school sports can do for people, then that I think is the bigger aspect of this whole thing. Like for some people, high school sports is everything. Like it's a means to a better life. It's a coping mechanism. It's everything to some people. And so I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for local businesses to put your name out there. I do so much social media plugging, and so I'm happy to make this a mutually beneficial relationship as much as possible. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what the challenge is for sure. Is just trying to make this thing as viable as possible and convince my wife that I can keep doing this long term.
Yes, and that's the big thing. I think that's the next big question is you have to give this a lot of time. Is this your full-time deal or is it your side hustle and you have a 9-to-5 job?
So started off as kind of a side hustle, but then I saw that, once I started getting some views coming in and so the subscribership response that I got when I first put this thing out last October, I started doing full shows, like those half an hour shows. I started doing those last February. And so the response that I got to those, my viewership and subscribership just jumped. So I know that there's a want for it. And then that really showed me, I was like, okay, I need to start doing this. I need to make this my main thing. And so I have invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort into putting this thing together and making it work and making it attractive and making people want to come over and be a part of it. And so this is my 9-to-5 right now. My side hustle is kind of working to like helping out freelancing with the Sacramento Bee or doing some stories for West Coast Preps. I've even done a little bit of broadcasting for ABC Jam throughout the NFHS network. So I have a lot of side hustles going on still too, but this is my main focus right now.
Absolutely love it. And that's why I want to make the appeal to not only just small businesses, but big businesses out there. I think there's somebody out there that would easily watch this, see that the passion that Nick has to really bring something special to this community. Because, like he said, and he said it very well, nobody else is doing this, okay? I do think that the local TV stations have done a better job of covering high school sports, because I see that they see that there is an importance for it, but they're just going to give you the highlights, and they might give you a feature here and there. What Nick is doing is he's taking it to the next level, right? And so if you're a business out there, it shouldn't even be about your business. Like, just support high school sports so that we can have this machine, Premier Preps, just ongoing, and we could take care of Nick and his family. That's all we're asking here for. And the reason I'm passionate about this is because when I got into broadcasting, high school sports was one of those things I was like, man, that'd be really cool to do. So I was able to do that at 1240, and I was kind of sharing this with you. I did a show called The Prep Page with Joe Davidson. And when you hear the name Joe Davidson, right, Nick, everybody knows who Joe D is.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that guy, but in all serious, Joe D is the gold standard here in Sacramento, especially when it comes to high school sports. I think everybody aspires to be like him, and the career that he's had. He's definitely been a mentor of mine, since I was trying to finish up school and trying to figure this whole thing out of how to break into the journalism industry. And he's been a great friend that's grown on me. We go out and have a couple adult beverages every now and then, and just talk high school sports and family and everything about life. So he's been a great mentor of mine.
Well, and what people have to remember is Joe D, although he never changes, like, he looks the same. He might have a little gray hair here and there, but literally has not changed. And I go back to now I'm 55 years old, okay? So I go back, and I just remember the early days of Joe Davidson. And what's beautiful is when he recaptures these stories that are either from my heyday or a little bit after and stuff. It's like you realize the magic that Joe Davidson is when it comes to high school sports. And I like how you said it. He is indeed the gold standard. And interestingly enough, like his story, and he's actually featured on Experience the Buzz. We did an early episode with him. He's one of my early guests. And I loved how he talked about, there was a time when he was trying to move away from it, but he knew that it was always in his DNA, and he came back to it, and he has not stopped. And it's great to see that someone like yourself now sees him as a mentor, because when it comes to high school sports, no one does it better than Joe Davidson. And so I would imagine that you guys probably link up quite a bit during the season to help each other out, because like you said, you're a freelance writer for Sacramento Bee too, which, by the way, still exists.
It does indeed still exist, and thank goodness. We would hate to see if the sports section went away. A lot of them are. That's just the sign of the times that we're in with journalism. A lot of the sports pages are shrinking, and it's very unfortunate. But again, Joe is Joe, and he's always going to do his thing. I think he's in year 35 now, and working for the Sacramento Bee. I think he's aiming for 50. Is what he told me earlier this year. So, we got a lot more Joe D, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
for the time.
And we say that jokingly because, if you know Joe Davidson, he'll crack a joke at you. Has no problem doing that. And he's got a wit that is very unique. Is that a fair assessment?
Sure. Yeah, you could. That's fair.
So in addition to the prep page, when I moved over to Sports 1140 KHDK in the mid-90s, we actually put together a group called the Sacramento Sports Network. So it was me and 5 other guys, and 2 of those guys that were in that group are names that you know: Jason Ross, who's currently still with KHDK, over 30 years, and Scott Marsh. We were young, and what we did is we put together a Friday night show where we would have a host, Bobby Gerald, the son of Gary Gerald, would be in studio, and there would be all the rest of us. We would be out and we would be getting stories on high school games that were going on and reporting live. And I have to tell you, I've done a lot of things in journalism, but that was one of the more exciting things because it was happening at that moment and stuff. And so that's why I get excited about what you're doing. Yes, you're doing something that's recorded and put out, but it's the excitement of high school sports that I think is just, it's untouchable. It's unmatched. And I'm just glad you're bringing exposure to it.
I appreciate that, man. It sounds like you guys were a little ahead of your time with that show there, going out.
We were.
And
there's no doubt.
On Friday night.
Yeah, it was
That's awesome.
so much fun. And of course, we had to convince our program director at the time. His name was Mike Ramey. And Mike would look at us like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work. And we're like, just let us try. And we actually didn't get paid or anything like that. And we did sponsors. And so, again, that's why I connect with what you're doing, because all of this had to fall in place. But what was cool about it is that it led to opportunities like being able to call the city championship. I remember convincing Mike Ramey, hey, can we call the city championship on Sports 1140 KSHK? We did it, I think, for a couple of years. That then led a parent who said, you know what? Would you consider just coming and calling a game that would be for my son, because we're trying to make a highlight reel for him, and I'll pay you X amount. I think at that time it was like $200. Sure. Those are fun times. And that's why, like what you're doing, all these things along the way are leading to what I think should be and needs to be a big thing in the Sacramento area. And I want to mention, I love how you put it, giving Sacramento high school sports the coverage it deserves.
Yeah, this is a town and an area and a region that is just budding with talent on the athletic fields on there, and it may not have always been that way, but it's on the up and up. And like I said before, there's not a whole lot of coverage that does exactly what I'm trying to do with Premier Preps. And it's just what it is an all-encompassing, whether it's game highlights or interviews or the feature stories that I talked about. I have team rankings, weekly top 10 team rankings for every sport that I cover. Plays of the week that people can send in through social media, even if I'm not at your game. I'm looking into doing a top student section every week. Again, that's something that people can tag me on social media if I'm not at your game, and you still have a chance to get featured on the show. So, think of it as a sports center for local high school sports. And I think that this area would jump on that idea, and a lot of people have. A lot of people have just come up and told me to be like, hey, man, I really appreciate what you're doing, and keep it going. And that's what we're trying to do, keep this thing going.
Love it. Nick Pecoraro with Premier Preps. That's what we're talking. We're talking high school sports today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into what it takes to get the word out. Nick's kind of hit a little on it, but I'm always fascinated with social media and how businesses like Nick's are able to use that to get the word out, right? He's covered on a lot, but how do you manage that, right? And then we're also going to talk about kind of the jump from print media to the media that he's doing now, where he's actually behind the camera, he's cutting the highlights. He is the one-man band, which I think is a gift in itself, doing good stuff. So again, Premier Preps, you can find it on YouTube. We're going to drop all the socials for you so that you can check it out. Again, if you're a high school sports athlete, if you are a family out there and you have a business, I definitely want you to consider Nick and what he is doing and get behind it and support it. So we'll take a break here on Experience the Buzz. Back with Nick. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're talking high school sports. All right, first half of the conversation in the books. Big thank you to Nick Pecoraro, Premier Preps. Man, so good to talk high school sports. I love it. Got a passion for it. And we're going to be talking more with Nick in just a moment. Want to thank my sponsors, awesome sponsors, Pit Boss Jerky, along with MiKimos Barbecue and On-Call Personalized Urgent Care with Dr. Julie Allen. Pit Boss Jerky, they were the first and one of a few that were with me since day one. They're the only one remaining. So a big shout out to Joe Green. He's actually featured his story in episode number 26. We did that back in April of 2021. You can check that out. But I'm here to tell you, if you like beef jerky, don't go any further than Pit Boss Jerky. And I'm not just saying that because he's a sponsor. It ultimately is the best beef jerky. He's got 12 amazing flavors, also offers beef sticks, and it can be ordered online. All you have to do is go to pitbossjerky.com, $9 per bag, also $6 per beef stick. They come in pairs, great flavors. My favorite, of course, is Buzz Experience. Why? Because it's named after the show. Next up will be Raspberry Apple Chipotle, followed by Island Teriyaki. So I only gave you 3 of the 12. The other 9, pretty amazing as well. Also want to thank MiKimos Barbecue, my producer and good friend Michael Kenobi. Yes, it's his business, and he is doing barbecue. He loves barbecue. That's right, caterer for all types of events. And this is a business that just got underway late in 2023. In fact, I brought Michael on to tell his story and kind of talk about this new business adventure. That's in episode number 129. Best way to get a hold of Michael and find out more about MiKimos Barbecue and how they can come to you and take care of your event, just go to Instagram, and it's MiKimos, which is MiKimos _. So you got to hit the shift key to get the underscore barbecue, which is spelled out BARBECUE. MiKimos Barbecue on Instagram. And lastly, I want to thank my good friend, Dr. Julie Allen. That's right. I had the opportunity to teach her kids when I was at St. Michael's. She is a doctor that has started up her own business called On Call Personalized Urgent Care. I featured her in episode 137. She tells her story, and it's just amazing. First of all, let me give you the information, personalizedurgentcare.com, or you can reach her directly at 916-347-4468. Here's what I love. It's like a doctor in your pocket. So I have health insurance. I do have a primary doctor, but a lot of times I don't want to go to my primary doctor because there's a lot of red tape to set up, being able to get an appointment. It might be weeks down the line, months down the line. I can call Julie and just say, hey, I've got this issue. Can you help me out? Yes, boom, she's there. That's it. And so there's memberships available. And there's also just on-call, opportunities to have Julie help you. And that's what I've got in place. So I had a cough that I get during the summer, which is usually from allergies. She actually helped me get a chest x-ray to make sure nothing else was going on. And so she has really become my advocate to answer questions that I want to get answered right away. And if I need something like an x-ray, to be able to set that up and do that within hours, not days, not weeks, not months. So I'm very, very happy to have Julie Allen, the doctor, with, by the way, 10 years of experience in the personalized healthcare field. So good stuff, and a good thing with our sponsors. Want to thank them again: On Call Personalized Urgent Care, MiKimos Barbecue, and Pit Boss Jerky. All right, those are our sponsors for the show. That's what makes it happen. Let's get back to our conversation with Nick Pecoraro.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are back with Nick Pecoraro. That's right. He is the host of Premier Preps. He has been in the high school scene since 2010. He's a contributor for the Sacramento Bee, but he has a venture. It's his 9-to-5 venture, and that is this show called Premier Preps. We've talked a lot about the show. We talked about a lot about high school sports. I want to dive into the social media aspect. My curiosity is the percentage of the people that you have out there. So I'm talking about families, and then we're talking about high school kids, right? Talk to me about being able to kind of get the word out to those two groups of people.
Yeah, well, social media is crucial in what I do and trying to get the word out. I mean, over the years working in the newspapers, I've been able to build up somewhat of a following, like on the Twitter and everything like that. Twitter, I feel like is more, people get more updates and news from the community through Twitter. Instagram, you see a lot more of, the kids who are still in school right now. Pretty much everybody's on Instagram. And then, TikTok, I'm still very new to TikTok. I really don't know what I'm doing on TikTok, to be honest with you. But I know all the kids are on TikTok, so I got to try and do something. And then, Facebook, for are like the old folks like you and I who, we still think that Facebook exists. And so I put some stuff out on Facebook every now and then to reach the rest of the family. But that also is a big grind in itself because, again, I'm trying to seek out all of, when I go to print out my rosters for the games that I'm going to, I try to seek out whoever is on Twitter, whoever's on Instagram, and try to tag them and let them know that I'll be at the game. Hopefully that'll get them, to watch the show and maybe even subscribe and tell their families and friends and stuff like that. That's the hope and the goal. But every now and then you get lucky and you get a coach who you become cool with and you build a good rapport with, or you get an AD or an administrator that will help you kind of plug your show and kind of spread the word for you. And that's huge too, because it's not just the kids that we're trying to feature here, but we want to let them know, we want to let their families know, hey, they're going to be on this show and these highlights are pretty cool and unique. And, hopefully they think that this guy does a good job with it and they start spreading the word with that too. So yeah, I mean, social media is huge with what I do. And it's, whether it's sharing links or promoting my weekly top 10 rankings or plays of the week or something like that, or my sponsors that I'm trying to lock down. I mentioned Infinite Performance Physical Therapy earlier. She bought my plays of the week section, so I'm calling it the Infinite Performance Plays of the Week. And I usually close my show with those, and just get about 5 or 6 plays in there with her logo on there. And whenever I drop those on social media, usually on Monday mornings, I'll give her a nice plug too, and put her in my link tree, put her in my video description and everything like that. So make sure that people know about my sponsors as well.
And that's good because you're giving a full buffet. Like you are really taking. And here's the thing, for Dr. Janae Young, this is great because she's the only one right now. And so she's ahead of the game. She's getting all the love. But the hope is that you can, put in there 3, 5, maybe even 10. And I love how you talk about customization. I am all about customization in that you want it to work for the sponsor, right? You say, hey, listen, you come on board. You let me know what's going to work for you, and then I'm going to make that happen. I love that you have that flexibility with people.
Yeah, I have several different, let's call them opportunities for, if a local business wants to jump on board, whether, the big one is like my title sponsor, Premier Preps presented by, insert company here, or I do 3 games a week. I could be the football game of the week, the volleyball game of the week, flag football game of the week, and I have team rankings. Each of those is its own separate thing, own separate opportunity. I have the bottom ticker that gives you little score updates along the bottom of the screen. That's another opportunity for you to display your logo for several minutes at a time. Maybe there's something, like you said, I'm flexible in this. I have a lot of small things that I'm hoping to kind of build up into one larger thing. And so, I feel like the packages that I'm offering are reasonable. And again, I try to make it as mutually a beneficial relationship as possible, because if you're willing to help support me, I want to put myself out there to try to help support you as well.
That's great. I love that. Absolutely love that. So let's talk about high school sports in general. Here we are in 2024, and the big thing that has popped out for me, we're in the fall season, is girls flag football. I mean, it is insane how flag football I feel like it's taken over the nation, and not only on the high school level where they have introduced it on the girls' side, but you're seeing at the youth level too, it's become very big. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Flag football it's all the rage, all the buzz, if you will. I mean, it's awesome. I immediately fell in love with flag football when I started covering it last year. It officially became a sanctioned sport in the state of California just last year. It was unanimously voted, yes, we're going to do this. Last year, the Sac Joaquin section, which ranges from Merced to pretty much Yuba City and everything in between from Vacaville to pretty much Colfax. And so it's the second largest section in California when it comes to high school sports. And in our section last year, there were almost 70 teams fielding a flag football program. And that was significant because, some of the administrators that I spoke to last year, they say that they tend to not hold a playoff or a championship or anything like that until they can get, X amount of their teams, of their member schools to field teams. And it was so popular right away that they had 2 division championships last year. Del Oro from Loomis and Christian Brothers from Sacramento being the inaugural champions. And then the popularity just exploded. It nearly doubled in size this year. There's 130 teams this year compared to 70 last year. Yeah, girls flag football is booming. It's fast paced. It's up tempo, action packed. These girls can play. They're some of the top athletes out there. Some of them look better than some of the male counterparts that you see on Friday nights. And you mentioned the big picture part is flag football is going to be an Olympic sport in 2028.
And so that's my next question is we have, regular football for the guys. Is there going to be boys flag football? Is that something that's been discussed or is that not on the table yet?
I don't know about boys flag football. There's been a little bit of talk about 8-man football rather than the full tackle 11 on 11. And I think the schools that would benefit from 8-man football are like the smaller Division 6, Division 7 schools who have trouble fielding a full football team. And, it's been reported, we talked about Joe Davidson. He's reported on a couple of schools. I think there's been at least 3 schools this year, some of the smaller schools that have had to shut down their football programs this year just because of, a lack of participation or roster sizes. Just, it's not safe to play football with just a 12-person roster, right? You got kids playing both ways for a full game. That's not ideal. And, the injuries tend to pile up that way. So unfortunately, those 3 programs had to be shut down for this year, and hopefully they can bounce back. But those are the types of schools that would 100% benefit from like an 8-man football, and it's on the table. And they had the section media day earlier this year, and they've had discussions with some schools, and I think some do those like in an independent league or an independent schedule with some of the out of sections programs. But that would be interesting, yeah, for sure, to see what could happen with that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to process the girls flag football, 70 teams to 130 teams. I mean, I can't think in my day something that has launched so quickly and gained so much popularity. But that's great to see. That's great to see another avenue for the girls. And again, this is happening on the college ranks as well. So it's another possibility of being able to, scholarship opportunities. And obviously, we love that for kids if that's the thing that's going on.
Yeah, and another note on flag football is that, a lot of these girls aren't just coming in, just the non-athletes coming in off the street, right? Some of these girls have Division I commitments to other sports. So a lot of these flag football coaches, they keep telling me that it's like, well, it's a constant juggling act, right? Because we share a lot of multi-sport athletes, whether it's in season or out of season. Like they still have some club softball going on. They still have some club soccer going on that these girls need to go and try to practice for. And they're trying to work around their schedules and their school schedules and everything like that. And so it's been a balancing act, but for the most part, everything has been just amazing to cover.
Okay. And I had to wonder too, the coaches that are coaching these teams, do they have a football background, or is it dad off the street to say, I'll drum up a few plays? What are the makeups of these coaching staffs?
Yeah, so you get it's a little bit of a range, but I mean, so there's some of the first year, the first timers who are trying to figure it out along with everybody else, and then you get all the way up to like the Tony Martellos from Colfax High School. He's the winningest football coach out of Placer County. He won several section titles with Colfax football, and he took it on last year to coach the girls flag football team, and so he's that's, and you could tell his leadership is rubbing off on them because they were one of the top teams last year, and they still are this year. Eric Cavalier, who I just had as a guest on my last episode of Premier Preps at Oak Ridge. He won a section championship with the Trojans football team in 2019. He stepped away from the game for a while just to spend some time with family and give himself a breather. And now he's back on the football field coaching the first ever girls flag football team at Oak Ridge. So I think that's really cool.
Love it. Okay, so girls flag football, we've tagged that. What are some other things that are happening in high school sports? I know we're just in the fall season, but kind of giving us perspective of things maybe people don't know out there.
Man, it's just a good time to be a high school sports fan. I mean, especially here in Sacramento, you got Folsom football, who's came into the season nationally ranked. You know, they are just a juggernaut. They have been since 2010, since I started covering them. I used to joke with Chris Richardson, who's now a coach at Sac State. He was the head coach of Folsom back when I started, and so I used to joke with him a lot. I was like, you guys didn't really start winning any state titles until I started coming around and covering you guys, so you're welcome. But no, it's just a great region to be covering. You got the Rockland high schools who are on the up and up. You got guys who are the Grant high schools, who is a longtime power in the 80s and the 90s, and they're kind of a resurgent after spending some time in the Sierra Foothill League. They're on the up and up, nearly went back to back at the state championship level last year. And they're certainly a contender to do that again this year. And just watch out for a lot of the local talent, because a lot of these kids are moving their way up the ranks into the college, and they're getting drafted. And we're starting to see them in the big leagues, in the NFL, starting to see them play on Sundays. And so, that's why you can start watching these kids here now while they're on Premier Preps, and they can have those memories of these guys. And, when you do see them on Sunday, be like, hey, I remember watching them play that one time on YouTube.
Right? It's a record of what they've done here in Sacramento. I know that another big story that I wanted to hit on was lights at Jesuit High School. They played Rio Americana High School, which is a big rivalry, actually within my neck of the woods. That was a pretty big deal, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So Jesuit High School in Carmichael opened, I believe, in 1963, I want to say. And, traditionally they've never had stadium lights at their football field. And it's been a years-long process and a years-long ordeal with the Sacramento County Planning Commission, and trying to make sure that, they want to have Friday night lights, like just to play like anybody else on Fridays. They've done their football home games on Saturday afternoons traditionally, which comes with its own hurdles, whether it's the smoldering heat, playing out there on Saturday afternoons in the early parts of the fall, or just because it's hard to reel in student section. Jesuit's a private school, right? So it's made up of students from all over the place, not just in the surrounding neighborhoods. So you got kids from like Roseville and El Dorado Hills who go home on Friday after school, and maybe some of them don't want to come all the way back to Carmichael for a Saturday afternoon game. Some of them would rather just stay there for a Friday night game and get those bigger home crowds and get that home field feel and the big student sections. Well, they finally got the lights approved this past June to have permanent stadium lights at Jesuit High School. And they, give credit to the administration there too, because they wanted to do it the right way, to go through the right avenues and make sure they were being respectful of the surrounding communities and not making a whole lot of noise and causing a whole ton of traffic through the neighborhoods and everything like that. And so I feel like they did it the right way. They took the proper steps and the proper avenues. And now we got permanent stadium lights at Jesuit High School, which is very, very exciting. Now they're in the Sierra Foothill League too, with the Folsoms and the Rocklands and the Oak Ridges. So this Super Power League just got even.
Well, and I have to say for me, so I graduated from Christian Brothers in 1987. Let's see, Vince Delgado, my freshman year, that was like the premier player and stuff. And things were like, to me, it seems so simple, man. I sound so old when I say that statement. But it was the Metro League, you had the Delta League, and everything was, you pretty much knew. That's the other thing for me. I feel like there's been so much jumping around from one division to another. I can't keep track. So if you told me what division is Christian Brothers in, I would have no idea. What division is Jesuit? I have no idea. And then I know it's different from sport to sport. Can you kind of like clean that up for me? Is it something that's going to like stay in place, or is this just kind of where we're at, where things are going to be constantly moving from year to year?
Well, part of it has to do with enrollment, right? Part of it has to do with enrollment because there's been, over the past 10, 20 years, there have been several new schools opening up that very much impact, the traditional schools that you're used to when we grew up. And, like the West Parks out in Roseville, which just opened up in 2020, 12 Bridges out in Lincoln just opened up a couple of years ago. And their football program already made it to the section finals in just their second varsity year. So, but yeah, a lot of it. Okay, so a lot of the sections divisional alignment has a lot to do with their enrollment, but some of it has to do with their postseason success. They have what's called a continued success rule. So if you are consistently making a deep run in the postseason, if you always find yourselves in the championship game or even the semifinals, I believe, if you make it to the semifinals for at least 3 straight years, then you get bumped up a division to play with the bigger schools. And, perfect example of that is like a Central Catholic from Modesto, right? They have the most section championships in football. And so they're playing at Division I, even though their enrollment is probably like a Division 4 or 5. So
interesting. So it's almost like a soccer format, right? When you'd go out and do the seedings and stuff to decide where you're at, it's kind of got that same format.
Yeah, so you're kind of talking about relegation, right? So if you play well, if you keep finding yourself consistently, in the semifinals or in the finals or winning championships, you are going to play up. And I think if you break that cycle, like if you don't make the playoffs in one of those years, then okay, maybe we'll bump you down to the next one down. But it's constantly in motion. They used to have it to where, let's say, for example, Rockland is a Division II enrollment, but they play in a traditionally Division I league in the Sierra Foothill League. Like the Folsoms, Oak Ridge, Granite Bay, those are all like Division I enrollments. If you were a Division II school in a Division I league and you won that league, then you would get bumped up to the Division I playoffs. Well, this year, I believe it was last year too, they got rid of that rule. So if you are a Division II enrollment, you stay within your Division II bracket for the playoffs. And I like that because I think it kind of spreads out the competition a little bit more. I mean, by the time these brackets come out, they're already pretty loaded as it is. So I think it kind of spreads the wealth a little bit and makes for even better competition in the playoffs.
I like that. You know what? Now that you've explained that to me, like that makes sense to me. And that means they're actually doing work to make sure that it's as, I guess, even as a playing field or competitive that you want it to be from, year to year or season to season. So good stuff. Okay. Well, as we kind of wrap things up, I mean, this has been such a great conversation, which I knew it would be. And I was excited to bring you on and, kind of give me a big picture. You're obviously rolling with this show. You're trying to get sponsors in place, and we're hoping that maybe this podcast can be a small part of that and get some people that might jump up and say, yeah, I want to support Nick and what he's doing with Premier Preps. But what do you see as the big picture for you?
It's a great question. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it and share what we're doing here with Premier Preps. And I think just the big picture is to eventually jump from just doing this on YouTube every Sunday night to jumping on one of the local TV stations and being able to capture a bigger audience and just see where it goes from there. I do have plans and ideas to create scholarships for deserving student athletes at the end of the year. And, whether it's an athlete who does really well on the field, but also has shown promise and leadership abilities within their communities or have overcome something, it's like some of the kids that I've been featuring on my feature story packages, something along those lines. I know scholarships really helped me when I was going through school, and I want to be able to try to give back as much as possible. And I've had people approach me with ideas of, hey, let's put together some sort of all-star game. A Premier Preps all-star game and invite some of the top kids in the area or, just something fun like that. And, really just the big picture of everything is just I just want people to know that I'm out here, I'm dedicated, I'm passionate, I'm doing this all for the right reasons. And I just want to help create memories for the kids and their families.
There you have it, folks. I mean, I see so many avenues for what Nick is doing, and I don't think there would be any reason not to jump on board. And so, yeah, I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited that you're doing this. And by the way, we got to give credit to Lauren Neff. Lauren, I know, is a neighbor of yours, and she kind of connected us and stuff. So I wanted to give her the love, and that's great. And I'm glad we were able to kind of bring this together and talk about something special, which is high school sports here in Sacramento.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Neff family, neighbors.
Let's go. All right. So again, every Sunday at 5 o'clock on YouTube. That's where it is right now. You can check out the episodes. He's got 3 in the books. There's going to be more after this, makes its way onto the podcast platform and the YouTube platform. Again, go ahead and share all the social media handles with everybody in the audience.
So on YouTube, you can search at Premier Preps, or you can just type in Premier Preps with Nick Pecoraro. That's Pecoraro. And then on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's at Premier Preps NMP.
All right, there we have it. So what do you think, folks? High school sports is alive and well in Sacramento, and Nick Pecoraro is a big part of it. Thank you for joining in. I'll be back with a final word.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, well, there you have it. Another episode of Experience the Buzz in the books. If you would like to subscribe, it's very simple. Just hit subscribe, and that will alert you to brand new material. We bring it to you bi-weekly, try to premiere on Monday. What you've seen thus, over the last few weeks is that we've just been doing ETB episodes. I also have another podcast called Let's Talk Weddings, and we'll have a new episode coming out pretty soon there. And of course, I do heavy metal rock video reactions. That's right. We call that one Heavy Metal Thunder First Look. You can check that out as well. It's all under the universe of Buzzard TV on YouTube. As far as the podcast is concerned, you can find us on the Apple platform, Spotify platform. Those seem to be the most popular. So there's going to be another guest. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be someone fun. It is going to be an entrepreneur, because everybody's an entrepreneur and everybody has a story to tell. So that's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.